Almost as important as fighting for the lives of the most vulnerable is trying to answer the everlasting question, why do people like Andrew Cuomo? Cuomo kind of reminds me of the fake TED Talk guy.
Coming back to the center and slowing my speech, lowering the volume of my voice by looking at you directly and by making a list on my fingers. I've made you believe there is a point.
He's not doing a good job. He's just implementing these sort of TED Talk tricks in these press conferences and making everybody think he's in control. Well, he's not, obviously. One of the keys of doing this is to not say anything of substance.
Overwhelmingly, the people were at home, where there's been a lot of speculation about this. A lot of people, again, had opinions. A lot of people have been arguing where they come from and where we should be focusing. But if you notice, 18% of the people came from nursing homes. Less than 1% came from jail or prison. 2% came from the homeless population. 2% from other congregate facilities. But 66% of the people were at home, which is shocking to us.
What does that even mean? I don't even understand that. Sounds as if he's saying that most of the cases, since they came from home, maybe the lockdown wasn't a good idea, which that's kind of how it's been reported, but that's definitely not what he's saying, as witnessed by this incoherent ramble on Colbert.
In a survey of 1,300 new COVID patients, 66% of them had been staying at home. Do we know why these people who are staying at home are still getting sick?
Yeah, it's actually interesting, Stephen. The close down has worked so well, and what we feared didn't come true. The infection rate is now down to an increase among those people who stay home, meaning the close down is working.
Huh? I don't even know what he's talking about. This whole thing is really confusing at this point. But as America's #1 Cuomo to English translator, I think I can help. First, it's important to meet every claim from Andrew Cuomo with two pieces of knowledge. We know him as the Cuomo rules here. Number one, he's probably lying. Number two, he probably doesn't know what he's talking about. Which one is it this time? Let's start with the actual percentage itself. The media has reported this as 66% of hospitalized patients are people who were staying home, or maybe 66% of transmissions leading to hospitalizations are coming from people staying at home. Does this show that the lockdown just doesn't work? Well, first of all, how did they get this information? They asked people who were hospitalized, and they came in. They said, "Hey, how did this happen to you?" There has to be some skepticism, I suppose, on a poll like this. I mean, you're really going to tell the government that you were breaking their little quarantine? Probably not. And mobility data seems to show this as well. While 84% of people fall into the stay-at-home category, mobility only shows about a 65% drop. So people are clearly still moving around a little bit, even if they're not supposed to. Secondly, even if it were true, it might not be all that shocking. If you're telling almost everyone to stay home, it wouldn't be all that surprising that most of the cases came from people who stayed home. That's where most of the people are. Obviously, if you avoid all human contact, you're less likely to get a virus. Just like if we set the speed limit to 4, you're less likely to die in an accident. That does not make it a good policy. And just knowing a percentage is meaningless. Percentage of what? When we weren't in a lockdown, we were getting 3,200 new people in the hospital per day in New York. Now it's 600. It's an 82% drop. So even if it was true, it's not all that notable. But here's the thing. Cuomo likes to sit there in front of all of his PowerPoint slides and act like he understands them because it makes him look smart, just like the fake TED Talk guy.
I will now walk over to my laptop. By doing so, I'm demonstrating to you that as a thought leader, I understand technology and that there will be slides. Because everybody knows that a presentation seems more legitimate than it actually is if there are slides.
It's very true. Let's take a look at Cuomo's graphic or slide one more time. This is where he gets the idea that 66% of hospitalizations are coming from people staying at home. And it does say 66% and home on the same line. I will give him that. But look at the other categories. 18% nursing home, 4% assisted living facility, 2% congregate. What is a congregate? It's basically another type of nursing home, which I totally knew and did not have to look up. So if you were an essential employee who went to work on the subway and caught it there, where would you fall on that chart? I mean, the only possibility in the entire chart would be other. But then why would they go to the lengths to be so specific to break down multiple types of nursing homes, but not even give a category for work? It's possible he's just not describing these charts well. I don't put it past him. But it does not appear that he actually understands what his own chart is saying. To prove this, look at the Cuomo flail later on as he tries to explain another number. Remember, he said already 66% of people are at home. Listen.
Transportation method, we thought maybe they were taking public transportation, and we've taken special precautions on public transportation, but actually no, because these people were literally at home. 2% took car services, 9% were driving their own vehicle. Only 4% were taking public transportation, 2% were walking. 84% were at home, literally. Were they working? No. They were retired or they were unemployed. Only 17% working.
Huh? So now it's not 66% at home, it's 84% at home and 17% working? We'll give him the break on the rounding error, even though that does add up to 101%. So what the hell is that original chart that he made such a big deal about? I don't even understand it. The title might give us some hint. Source of admission. In medical lingo, that usually means the place that they came to the hospital from. But again, this would give no category for anyone who came in from work. Did 0 people come into the hospital from work? Because that would be, I guess, a little shocking. Also, let's say you picked up the virus at work and you got sick and then stayed home like you're supposed to. And then it got bad and you went to the hospital. How would you be categorized? Home? That makes no sense, and it certainly doesn't support what he's talking about. I don't think that's what this chart is at all, despite the title. At this point, I will say we're in speculation mode a little bit because it doesn't seem like anyone, including Cuomo, actually knows what he's talking about. But as hard as it is to believe, I think this highly publicized chart is simply referring to the living arrangements of those who are hospitalized. Like, does the person who came into the hospital reside in a private residence or a nursing home or in jail or in prison, etc.? If so, this is a truly meaningless number. The only reason you'd include it is to talk about the nursing home thing, and it wouldn't shock anyone at all. 66% is not that high. So why is Cuomo making a big deal about it? Let's consult the Cuomo rules. Maybe he just doesn't understand what he's talking about. I mean, that is at least part of it, I think, here. But it also may be partially an attempt to redirect us from the real scandal in New York. What is remarkable about his own chart is not that 16% of the population are essential workers and they're causing 17% of hospitalizations. Considering all the factors, that many of the most at-risk essential workers are not reporting to work anyway, and the possibility of more human contact if they do go to work, this seems like it maybe evens out and it's about where you expect it to be. And, look, it's nothing to be shocked by the fact that 83% of the population who are non-essential workers or unemployed or retired but staying at home will be causing about maybe a third of all hospitalizations. That's probably lower than you think it would be. It's the fact that about 1% of the population who live in nursing homes are causing as much as half of the state's hospitalizations. We'll get into the specific numbers on this coming up. But as we discovered and covered in depth last week, Andrew Cuomo is a guy who gave the health department an edict which required nursing homes to import COVID patients and to prevent nursing homes from testing them to stop discrimination against COVID positive patients. He only rescinded part of that yesterday. It took all the way to yesterday. Yet this guy remains popular somehow among regular New Yorkers. And he's manipulated his own nursing home scandal into a way to blame the problems on those same regular New Yorkers.
the infection rate is now down to an increase among those people who stay home, meaning the close down is working. We're down to a level now where it's pure personal behavior. And whether or not you're wearing a mask and you're using sanitizer, because this is now people who are at home, who are not working, not taking public transportation. That's the only area that we still see growth, and that's actually good news.
It's all about your personal behavior. And I mean, that is true if your name is Andrew Cuomo. But it's not true for everyone else. It wasn't the personal behavior of the 80-year-old in a nursing home who died of COVID-19. But somehow the TED Talk magic tricks continue to work on the media. If you just look confident and show your fancy PowerPoint, and of course, be a Democrat, very important part of this, then you too can use these fabulous tips to make your TED Talk or press conference truly successful. The Andrew Cuomo way.
Walk on stage, walk on stage, walk on stage, walk on stage. I am a thought leader. You know that I'm a thought leader because I'm wearing a blazer and I've just done this with my hands. I'm now going to come back to the center of the stage and give you some unremarkable context about how I became a thought leader. Let's look at a picture. Nice, isn't it? That's where we live. What happens if I put some words over it? How about a number? I'm going to tell you an unremarkable story that's seemingly unrelated, and it's funny. And you'll know it's funny because I'm laughing, and you're laughing. And you'll ask yourselves, what does this have to do with his talk? What is the point? Well, coming back to the center and slowing my speech, lowering the volume of my voice. Graph, 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 pie chart, statistic. How about we end with a question, a very big question. What if everybody in this room decided to come together and agree with what I'm saying? Coming back to the center of the stage, standing ovation. Humble head nod, humble head nod, humble head nod. See someone I know, humble head nod. Video fades to black while the applause continues for an unrealistic amount of time.